So let me review what happened today in the hearings. Again, the hearings were excellent today. I'm just flabbergasted by how good these hearings are. And if I'm being honest, as I said to you guys before, I think it's because the Republicans are mainly in charge. Yes, Benny Thompson is the head of the committee, and it's mainly Democrats, and obviously Benny Thompson is a Democrat. But most of the questioning is, or a lot of the questioning is happening by Republican lawyers with Republican witnesses. And so that has a couple of positive things to it. It has one negative that now, not only are we covering the hearings live, you should always check it out with us. From what I'm hearing from the audience on my facial expressions alone, which I appreciate you guys saying that. That's fun, right? It's very serious stuff, but we're having fun with it. But also, we're now getting your comments in, and we're showing those throughout the hearings. And a lot of you were frustrated in the beginning. I mean, Pence is getting all this credit. Liz Cheney is conducting a lot of this, and now is getting credit for it. And yes, Liz Cheney is historically someone we disagree with a lot, and we will again in the future, and we do today on almost all the issues. Mike Pence is not a good guy. He's, in my opinion, a religious zealot, et cetera, et cetera. But two things here are important. One is you always have to be fair and honest and give credit where credit is due. If Pence had given into what they described today as the enormous pressure, the unrelenting pressure by Trump to give into a fake legal theory that even the main lawyer, John Eastman, who was pushing that theory, knew was fake. And as the testimony showed today over and over again, he said that he thought they would lose 9-0 in the Supreme Court based on his legal theory. It had no legs to stand on at all, okay? And every, again, Republican that testified today, whether they were on legal counsel to Vice President Pence, or it's Judge Ludick, who is right-wing Federalist Society Republican, they all say, of course the vice president cannot unilaterally decide who the president is. And so they kept going back to the Jefferson never said that. They didn't even come close to saying that. It's all a fabrication. Under that theory, they said it several times. Then Gore could have declared himself the president in 2000, which is something I've been saying since the moment that it happened, since January 6th. I've been saying that. And the next thing, and the next one, I was like, please, somebody say it. Somebody say it. And finally they did. Well, if that theory was true, then Kamala Harris can unilaterally decide who the next president is going to be. The voting would be irrelevant. You would have two sets of electors designed by Democrats and Republicans, as Trump wanted to do and his lawyer John Eastman wanted to do. And Kamala Harris would just get to say, I picked the Democratic electors, whether it's true or untrue. And now Biden will remain president. And by the way, he'll remain president ad infinitum, right? So it's an obviously ridiculous, absurd, and deeply un-American theory. But it's not really a theory. It's a fig leaf, right? So they just put it on for what is in essence a coup. So even Judge Ludick, who honestly was an awful witness, I think that he was trying to appear somber and serious, and he takes himself very seriously. But I lost years of my life between his pauses, and his thoughts were elliptical. And at the end, were not, I followed the entire train of logic. I understood it, but it was not a great way of communicating what he was trying to say in an efficient and effective manner. So, but even he was saying the same things. This is absurd. No right-winger, no Republican, no American should think that one man can ignore the votes of the entire country and just decide the election. It's a preposterous theory. And it's deeply embarrassing that anyone who is conservative would have that theory. And that goes to the main question that a lot of you guys are asking throughout too, which is why is almost everybody here Republican? Why is everything being framed as these guys are the heroes and stuff? Well, number one, as I said earlier, Pence was a hero. I mean, yeah, it's a super low bar that he just said, no, I'm not going to accept your insane theory and destroy our democracy. But Trump wouldn't have passed that bar. Eastman wouldn't have passed that bar. Jason Miller, so many others didn't pass that bar. Pence did pass that bar, so give him credit. But the second reason is more important, guys. Because remember, Democratic voters largely already agree, right? And a lot of independents agree. But we're trying to convince the rest, or the committee is trying to convince the rest of the independents, and importantly, the Republican voters. Guys, you don't want this. You don't want the end of democracy. You don't want lawlessness. You don't want to burn our Constitution and destroy our form of government. This isn't right. And they're making that case very effectively. And they're doing it efficiently and crisply. And so if you're mad at me that I think it's mainly the Republicans that are organizing it, because I've never seen the Democrats be this effective and this efficient. Sorry, but that's just true. So if it is mainly the Democrats that are putting it together, great, amazing, finally competence, terrific. But it's important that everybody hear this. If everyone in the country watched these hearings, it would fundamentally change the way they think about January 6th and Donald Trump. Because not would it affect all Republicans? Of course not. There's probably about 3/4 of Republicans that are in an absolute Vulcan mind lock. Whatever Trump or Tucker Carlson or Hannity says, they will listen to it no matter what. If they told them, hey, rip the American flag and burn the Constitution, they'd be like, of course, the most American thing you can do is destroy our documents, destroy our democracy, destroy our government. Of course, yeah. So that's 3/4 of Republicans. I'm under no delusions about that, right? But 25% of Republicans, the majority of independents, that's all you need for sanity to rule again and to be dominant again. So, guys, this is of utmost importance, because if this is not just about the past, and it's not just that if you don't punish the crimes of the past, that they will be repeated the next time the Republicans are in charge, and then we will lose our democracy. That's critical. That's absolutely true. But this is also about the future, because and the present, because right now, if the election were held today and it was Biden versus Trump, which is the most likely outcome, I hope to God that isn't what it winds up being, but right now it would be that Trump would win. He wouldn't win just in the Republican Party. He would win the election, period. And this guy, who very, very, very clearly does not believe in democracy, is a thug. And yes, for God's sake, it is not 1% hyperbole. He is a fascist. He does not believe in our form of government. And he constantly uses the threat of violence to try to intimidate not only his opponents, but his own vice president, the Republican Party, other right-wingers. He says the absurd things to Pence, as you saw at the end of the hearings, like, well, if you did this, then I wouldn't want to be your friend anymore. I mean, who says that? Either a child says that or a mob boss says that. I wouldn't want to be your friends anymore, if you know what that means. And you know what it meant the next day on January 6th is, well, what it meant was, I'm going to agitate everybody to be super angry at you. Then they're going to go and break into the Capitol where you are, chanting about murdering you. And then I'm going to put out a tweet after I know they're coming to get you, further encouraging them to get you, to physically end you. That is what a fascist does. Trying to get his own vice president hurt at the minimum and potentially murdered. It's real, guys. It's Republicans telling you it's real. It's Pence's team telling you it's real. They were actually, Trump was threatening basically physical violence against him. And Pence says to him in that final meeting, Mr. President, I'm positive that one man cannot unilaterally decide an election. I will not say that, right? Then Trump leans in and says, yeah, but wouldn't it be cool if one man could decide the election? I mean, again, his best case scenario is that he's a child, that he has the mentality of a 7-year-old. And I'm sorry to offend all the children out there. But like, yeah, but wouldn't it be cool if I could just be president and you could just be the one person who decides I'm president, even if I lost? Wouldn't it be cool? Or more likely, although both are potentially the correct answer here, that he's threatening him. And the threats were not subtle, both publicly and privately. And look, so the hearings are very important. That doesn't mean we're not going to have fun with them. We are. I mean, the frowning ladies in the background are unbelievable. The one behind Jacob Pence's lawyer, even when she was smiling, it was a frown. She had permanent like lines here. The guy on the other side looked like John McLaughlin's younger brother. We had a frown lady on the other side. We had the guy who speaks for all of us on the other side of Judge Ludig as he was talking. He's like, okay, we had the goat beard dude. Who's the cameraman in that row. We had a guy. Now we have a new bad guy I never even heard of. Cheeseboro. He's one of the Eastman Trump guys, and his name is spelled Cheesebro. They even have a Cheesebro on their side. I mean, it's hilarious as it's devastating. And then there's of course the great the parliamentary talk. Gentlewoman. I'm always amused by the word gentle. And now I present to you the gentlewoman from Wyoming. And when they have to, when the chairman himself is speaking, he has to quote unquote recognize himself. So he says this, because you know what, in my mind, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking about the super serious, the political consequences, the legal ramifications, the legal theories, but I'm also an inner child myself, honestly. So when they're like, and then Cheese Bro said something, come on, dude, I can't believe we're having a conversation about Cheese Bro. And then when Benny Thompson says, I now recognize myself. And I think of, okay, I look in the mirror and I go, I now recognize myself. There I am. All right, that's the goofy stuff. But the heart of it, guys. Oh, and Jason Miller, wow. On the one hand, privately, as he's talking to the lawyers and he's under oath, he's saying, yeah, we knew that everybody thought we were being, quote, nutty, and that the theory that we were putting out there was, quote, crazy, right? But what did he do? He pushed it anyway. They pushed it anyway. And then you see him live on TV saying, oh, of course we should do this. Absolutely. What an unbelievable liar and hypocrite. It's amazing. And so, and then finally, the heart of this, guys, is the fake electors. And they finally started, and they even use the phrase fake electors. If you're doing fake electors and you're getting them to sign papers, this is a matter of law. You are violating the law to try to end our democracy. And so that's why these hearings are super important.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.